Welcome to the market update. My name is Kay Kim with the Traders Club. Thank you for tuning in for tonight's episode of the market update. Again, thanks for following me on Twitter, Stock Twits, and YouTube, and my blog at twotradersclub.com. I appreciate your support and kind words and tweets and things. Let's look at the market here. Let's start with the financial sector because I think I did spend quite a bit last Friday talking about this, mainly talking about the bearish divergence that it has. Let me see here. Hold on a sec. All right, so we been talking about this here, bearish divergence that we see on MACD. Let me actually get rid of. At this point, RSI Stochastic is not relevant, so I'm just gonna kind of deal with the MACD here. Here's the thing: is that I did this was on this day right here, right? This was last Friday. Actually, when was last Friday? This was February 24th. So let me just be right here. This was last Friday, right? This was last Friday. When I did the market update, I promised you that I will talk about this this week. So we've been talking about this bearish divergence formation that has not been confirmed. We talked about that for this bearish divergence to confirm, we would need to see this crawling back down, right? You see that something, you would want to see this crossing, right? Like that, the fast line coming down, the blue line coming down, and then the red line getting back above and then crawling down. So that's kind of what we talked about. And then we talked about this level as potential support, 2375. And we talked about there's a, for this bearish divergence to fully confirm, we will need to see, this 23 to be broken for the much selling to possibly continue. But we also talked about that I don't see that happening. I thought that, the worst case scenario that we would probably come back to, if this will continue lower, we'll probably come back to 2373-ish. And we may, starts to do some kind of a nullifying process, meaning like this bearish divergence will start to kind of, grind here and then kind of gets back up. Well, what happened since then? We gapped up. You see that on this day, on March 1st, that was just a few days ago after the Trump's speech, we gapped up. And with that gap, as you can see, we never crossed back down. It continued to rise higher. This tells us that the trend as of today in this minor term trend is actually healthy. If this thing continues to move higher to the upside, it will completely nullify potential bearish divergence scenario, right? So again, for this bearish divergence to happen, is we need these two lines to cross, the blue line to come down, and then the red line to cross and then curl down. Right now, that's not what it looks like. It looks like they are still rising higher. Remember, when you're doing technical analysis, you want to put your most weight on the tangible data. You don't want to just say that, well, that can still happen, this will come down. The reason why you say that is because you went short today or yesterday and you really want this thing to tank. That's why you say that. But the fair analysis would be, well, as of today, we did have a chance to potentially bring this thing down or curl back down. We might have had that cross, maybe several days ago. But with that buying pressure on the March 1st, on the after the Trump's speech, with that pretty significant gap up, it is already putting the MACD kind of the rising sentiment, right? So we're in the process of kind of nullifying this. So I think as of today, it hasn't completely nullified this bearish divergence scenario, but it is starting to nullify it, right? So obviously this gap that we have today on the financials, you can see this gap. I will say this, as long as this gap stays open, it actually favors the buyers. Even if the thing comes down, fills the gap, that level will act as pretty strong support. So really, at this point, I don't know if this thing is ready for anywhere lower than, you know, maybe 24, 30, 50. If we fill this gap at 24.55. If we hold this level today and this gap remains open and we continue to rise higher, there's a great chance that this thing could continue move higher. Yesterday I tweeted out that, let me actually show you. I want to reiterate. So that's right there. So yesterday I tweeted out this here on Twitter and StockTwit. You can follow me there at 2KKim. I only hit 140 characters to explain it, so I tried my best. I think some of you might, like, what is he talking about? What tweezer is he talking about? Well, this is a tweezer. This is what we call tweezer top. Tweezer top is not very strong reversal candle. Tweezer top, tweezer bottom. A lot of times tweezer bottom occurs after a downtrend. You will see bearish candle and then a bullish candle, right? You see the dark candle and then bullish candle. They look like a tweezer. And I've seen a lot of tweezers. They don't really, they're not really potent reversal signal. But what I was saying is this. I said, if island happens, and when I say island, meaning this thing gapping down below this gap open area, if the island happened, on top of the tweezer, we got a gap up and gap down, that would put us down to possibly selling to maybe 233. That's what I was saying. But I said if we hold this level, we may go back up to retest 240. Guys, remember that? If you follow me on Twitter and StockTwit, you probably remember that, but I'm reiterating it. I didn't have enough space to explain everything. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. We didn't see, let's go to Spider here. We didn't see, here, let me actually put that gap here. We didn't see that gap down, right? So we didn't see that island. There's no island, right? So this is a kind of a range we're dealing with here. We didn't see island. What we're seeing is that we're kind of holding this level, right? I mean, we're slightly below these levels, these gap open level. But let me say this. If this thing starts to fizzle, and we keep this gap open throughout next week, it remains, or actually I will say the sentiment, it favors the buyers. If we keep this gap open, what we could possibly see is maybe continue lower on Monday, and then what we could do is it could come down here, which is about 237. This is a prior resistance. If we still come down to 237.36, 31-ish, and then find support, but bears fail to, close this gap, that will favor the buyers. Kind of similar thing happened here. We had a gap up here. It's trying to rally. We came down, got back up, and then we tanked. This thing actually gapped down. This was a close, right? On this day, February 23rd. And then we gapped down right at this gap open area. But bears, you can see a tiny bit of a wick. But bears forget to fill this gap, and then you can see got back up. We threw a bull flag, and then boom, right? You kind of see this happening again and again here. Same thing happened here. These gaps, they tell us a lot of story. That's why you're gonna love these gaps here. Right here, same thing happened. We had this big gap up. This was back in early February, and then you can see these wicks. I mean, bears really tried to fill this gap, failed to do so. We actually gapped up on this day. This was where it closed at 228.90-ish back in February 6th, and then we gapped up to 229.37 on February 7th, and then it got sold off, and then it tried again to fill the gap and then failed. What happened? On February 7th, we closed at 228.90, right? And then it gapped down. So let's say if I put a support here, it gapped down to 228.68 and then it started coming down. You see that wick? During the day, this was a bearish looking like this. And looked like this was going to come and fill this gap, but it fails to do it again. So what happened? This gap remains open. So when the gap remains open, when the bears fail to fill that gap, it favors the buyers. There's a reason why I say this way. There's a reason why I don't say that it's 100% guaranteed it's a bullish when the bears fail to fill the gap, because there's nothing guaranteed in the market. I want you to know that there's nothing guaranteed in life, right? You gotta look at this in a realistic way. But it has higher probability that it could continue move higher if bears fail to fill that recent gap. But they always try. And the people always say things like, well, all gaps get filled. It's stupid. Don't say that, because all gaps does not have to get filled. Look at all these gaps that never got filled. Sometimes it gets filled, yeah. This gap never got filled. So right now, this gap has not been filled as of today. So if it continues to kind of grind and kind of, it could look something like this, like a bull flag. And if we find support and fails to fill the gap, that would favors the buyers. Currently, we're finding support here. If this thing closed with a doji or some kind of a spinning top, Monday, let's say Monday or Tuesday, we see something like that. That will be an evening star reversal. But I wouldn't know until Monday what happens. So you can see that currently, right now we got 3 more hours to go. The market is obviously open as I produce or record this video. But you can see most indices here. We got semis up about 0.10%. Dow Jones is flat. Qs at 0.08. Financials are up about 0.4. Spiders pretty much flat there. Russell's 0.45 down, but a lot of indices are coming back here. So this gap. So that's what I would watch next week. If gap remains unfilled next week, that will favor the buyers. Currently looks, and the more it fizzles, the more it's gonna look like bull flagging pattern. Because what bears need to do, they need to just flush it down. That's kind of what bears need to do. Because they need that momentum. Bears having the short, the sellers really haven't seen any momentum. We had so much bullish momentum. They tried, but every pullback has been bought. And you could say that, well, I mean, this is just pretty much straight up parabolic move. We need, at least 5% correction here, or at least 3 to 4% correction. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. And that's what I've been talking about here. Even right here, how many times people are saying that we need at least 3 to 4% correction? How many shorts were trapped here? And then just watching this thing just see this monster rally in February without any kind of pullback. It could continue higher. Nobody knows. This is where that shorts and bears will say that it can't not possibly go higher. It's impossible. It can't possibly. The higher it goes, the bigger the fall. That's what they're gonna say. But the higher it went, the fall wasn't that big. We actually start consolidated. See, after this kind of bull, actually, if we just go back, I don't want to spend too much time here, but if we go back since really February, we saw these kind of a proper corrections in between. Though, I mean, these were, I look at it, and we look at that as like, that's a proper correction. But how many people were looking for a crash, right? And then now we're actually seeing a breakout. How many people are actually now looking for a proper correction? So here, they were looking for a crash. It didn't give to them. Here, they were looking for a crash. It didn't give to them. Well, there, where people are looking for proper corrections, it is not giving to them. This market knows. This market knows what majority of people are thinking. And because of that, you got to start thinking differently than what most people are thinking. it's fascinating to go back and just see what people are saying on StockTwits and Twitter and what most people are talking about the market, what most people are saying. Well, because it has gone up so much, it should, it must, and it won't. So that's kind of a, again, as of today, market is bullish. There's nothing bearish about it. And you can micromanage this and say, hey, you know, we're seeing a little bit of sell up, but the trend doesn't start just because we have a few days of pullback. After this kind of move, this market will not see just straight down. Even if this thing is ready to have some kind of correction, it's gonna have some kind of a minor term topping formation. Maybe you know, minor term double top, or some kind of a bearish divergence where it makes higher high and then the oscillator makes a lower high. You know, something. We don't have anything. We just got this one day thing, and then all bears are starting to be super excited, and that's the reason why most of them are not enjoying life, trying to short this thing and missing out on this huge move. We're trying to short on every little pullback there. So let's continue on here. Let's go to my Russell 2000. Obviously I didn't mark this, but I'll mark it right there. So I went long here with calls, and I added it more at open, and then since then we've been pulling back. I'm still calmly holding my call positions, full call positions. This is definitely not a level to start panicking or freaking out and start, you know, obviously you guys know that I'm a much longer term in my approach, and so these few days of pullback does not get me to you know, close my positions or get stopped out. You know, if this thing comes and fill this gap at 136.87 or comes down to about 135-ish, this level, that 50, where the 50 MA is residing, I might even buy more by that dip. I think Russell 2000, once this thing breaks out of this, I think it will do well here. Currently, we're trying to find some support at 20 MA. Let's see if we can close above 10 MA, or this is 20 MA actually, today. But currently we're just kind of, we're seeing some volatility here. But obviously looking at more of a, you know, intermediate, minor to intermediate term trend perspective, we did cultivate higher highs, and this was a low. You know, bears always want to call these highs as a trap. They're not a trap. They're a cultivation. They're establishment. This is higher high. This is low, higher low. We're looking for another higher low before going higher. Let's continue on here. City, I am obviously still holding my full position. Let me put my arrow there so you guys know my entry. Right there at open I did. The gap is still, again, same theory here. If the gap remains open, we also have this old resistance, new support kind of thing happening here. Do you see that? Let's make it blue. You can see currently that's where we're finding support, resistance, 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 potential support. So if that gap remains open, right there, you see that gap? If it doesn't completely get filled, that would favor the buyers. A little bit of bullish piercing. We don't know that until we see a follow through, but that's kind of, the bullish piercing is basically this thing gets down lower and then it gets, let's say if it closes at 50% or in this area, the 50% body of prior day candle, that's a textbook bullish piercing there. But obviously that's just a formation because it could continue lower. But if, let's say, we get a follow through next on Monday, that one, then I could say that, hey, that's a bullish piercing reversal. But as of today, we are holding that support. Let's see if we can see a follow through on Monday. Let's go to Intel. I'm still holding full positions on Intel. Obviously, this was my entry, close 1/3, and I added it again here. If you're new to my video, I tweeted about it, I blogged about it, and the level. This thing breaks out above 36.55. I think we will make new highs. I would have to say, even with the downgrade, it's holding up quite well. It's holding up quite well. I think I can put another line here. So 200 SMA has been acting as pretty strong support. We're just kind of hanging out here. You see a lot of wicks. You see these long lower wicks on Intel. There are a lot of buyers buying the dip. I mean, there are a lot of wicks here. Just wicks here. So I don't know how long it will continue to grind like this, but currently, obviously, we do have this falling resistance like that. So we do have a minor term selling pressure with the lower high, but we have a primary term, obviously, buying pressure with the higher low. So if we can hold this level, this 35 vicinity, and get above 36.55, I think there's a good chance we'll get 38 and even higher. So let's look at XLE and TLT quickly, and I'll end the. I'll look at gold and also XLE. This resistance here, you know, I don't. That's the thing, is that we get these pops and then the resistance. I mean, right now, XLE could get going if we can able to break above 73, 72, right? But right now, that resistance is what kind of hurting this recent move. So let's see if we get something going there next week. Obviously, TLT, with the recent move on Spider, that pretty, you know, the fast gap up move a few days ago, well, Treasury bond just tanked. This is the reason why I don't like to get into this when this thing start, you know, just zigzagging. I'll be buying. I'll be starting a new position if it hits 115-ish, but they were kind of dangling there on that support. Let's go to a silver. Silver, this, you know, this is a level that I've been talking about. You can see strong resistance. We've been talking about this level for how long now? This is the reason why. I mean, yeah, you get a good run. I mean, if you're able to catch some of this move, that's great. I mean, yeah, just quick swing trade. But I'm looking into this as possibly, you know, long-term trading, or, you know, I want to see gold and silver establishing an uptrend, so I can able to ride that for years. I can able to position, I can able to continue to milk that, or even, you know, invest for longer term. But right now we don't have this. As long as it stays below this falling resistance, we'll have to say benefit of the doubt goes to sellers in the long term. That's the reason why we get a kind of a big move and then comes down, and then now we did have a pretty good move here, coming back down here. So good news is that if the buyers want to turn things around, you know, maybe some kind of invert head and shoulder, but again, that falling resistance is very strong. Pressure there, selling pressure there. I mean, this thing needs to get above 1785 before before we can say that something's cooking to the upside for the longer term. So if you want to invest in silver and gold long term, this is not the level to do it. Not yet. I'm still watching. I want gold and silver to do well, so I can start to get in. See that that's not. If this thing starts to make new lows, it's gonna get ugly. Currently, though, obviously we're still bound by that long-term resistance, but we also have this kind of a minor to intermediate term resistance, right? That's kind of where we're finding resistance here. If this thing comes down and create new low, it's gonna get ugly, because we already have lower highs and we got low. If he makes another low, then we're officially in a downtrend. Bears want to see this thing turn around, and you gotta get above 124. Anywhere below 124, things gonna get very hectic. Let's continue to watch next week, see what happens. I have no positions on gold and silver. I don't even want to short this. GDX tanked last few weeks. Just created another resistance here. We did have this equal low. We talked about this last week. But what we wanted to see is we wanted to see that right shoulder. I mean, right shoulder still can be built. If this thing starts coming up, I mean, it can be kind of a leaning. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical to the left shoulder, the inverted head and shoulder. You got the head, left shoulder, and if this is right shoulder, it doesn't have to be right at that symmetrical area. It could actually be a little bit lower. But let's say if the problem then it occurs if this thing starts to come and start doing this, then it's gonna be looking very ugly, and it's gonna start to not be so good for long-term hold or any bullish aspect of it. So right now it looks more bearish to me, at least going into next week. But I don't want to do anything at this point. Quickly, let's talk about Tesla and Apple. I'll make this quick. Tesla is it came down a lot after the earnings here. With this resistance, got a lot of resistance. It did recover from it, but we're finding support. Currently finding support at 50 MA. That 50 MA is currently finding support. I did throw some Fibonacci here, so these are the levels to watch. If this thing not able to get above it, looks like a bear flag. If this thing does break below 50 MA and that Fibonacci, then possibly the next level with that 50% retracement level. But if this thing break up, there's a good chance about 263 there. I don't have any positions on Tesla. That monthly, see that monthly tails is concerning right now. So that's a lot of sellers in that vicinity, right? Look at that long there. So that's something to watch. I'll do Apple real quick, let you guys go. Apple finally, looked like we're seeing some selling event yesterday, but it looks a lot like bullish flag today. Look at this, these flags, and this is a pennant there, and this was a pennant right here. And so I mean, you could say that, hey, how long can it go? Nobody knows. I'm not in this position. Obviously, these are the levels I went with calls, and this is where I closed half there, and I added more there, and then this is where I finally closed everything. And I am very satisfied with my trade there. Again, my job is not to trade this perfectly. My job to execute my plan. Let's say this was my plan to close it out, but it continues higher. I'm fine with it. I'm fine, because it could have gone. Let's say the thing about it is, let's say I close it out and then this thing starts tanking right away. We're human, so that would make me feel a little bit better, right? Than if it continues higher. But at the end of the day, my job is not to extract every penny from the market. My job is to execute my plan and be content and be pleased with that plan. Sometimes that plan turned out to be a loser, and as long as I stuck with my plan, and it turned out to, and it was a good entry, and it turned out to be a loser, it might have been a losing trade, but it was a good trade, because not every trade is going to play out. That's just part of the game. So it turned out to be a good trade. It turned out to be a winning trade. I am very pleased, even if it goes without me. Right? Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week. Good luck trading next week.